Close your eyes for a moment and try to imagine what it would be like to go 15 days without sleeping. Now imagine doing that locked inside a sealed chamber, breathing in experimental gas, hearing sounds no human being was ever meant to hear. This is the story many people think they know. But today, we're going to tell the part almost no one talks about, the so-called Russian sleep experiment. A story that became famous as a legend, but one that was born during one of the darkest periods in human history, the Cold War. In the 1940s, the world was divided. On one side, the United States. On the other, the Soviet Union. And in between, a mad race for power, control, and knowledge. It was in this setting that the story emerged, claiming that 5 Russian political prisoners were used in a secret experiment. The proposal was simple, at least on paper. They would stay awake for 30 straight days. If they succeeded, they would be set free. The detail. They didn't have a choice. The prisoners were placed inside a completely sealed chamber. No cameras. Only microphones. And an experimental gas that prevented sleep was constantly released. During the first few days, everything seemed normal. They talked to each other, told stories, laughed. They even mocked the scientists observing them. But on the 5th day, something changed. The conversations stopped. An eerie silence filled the room. Then one of the prisoners began to scream. And he didn't stop. He screamed for hours. 4 days. Until he tore his own vocal cords apart. After that, even more disturbing behavior began. They started ripping off their own fingernails, tearing at their own skin, pulling out their hair. And then, total silence. No response to the scientists' calls. No sound. Nothing. When they finally decided to open the chamber, what they found was described as pure horror. Some bodies were completely motionless. Others were already dead. And those who were still breathing didn't seem human anymore. When questioned, they said only one thing. Don't let us fall asleep. It was as if sleep had become their greatest fear. This story spread around the world, often accompanied by a disturbing image many believed was real. But it wasn't. The famous photo of the survivor was actually just a Halloween animatronic prop. And here comes the revelation. The Russian sleep experiment never happened. It's a legend. But here's the terrifying part. Even though it's fake, it was inspired by real events. During the Cold War, secret experiments truly did take place. Prisoners were used. Sleep deprivation was applied as a psychological weapon. Programs like the CIA's MKUltra pushed the limits of the human mind using drugs, isolation, and days without sleep. Many documents were destroyed. Others were never made public. In the UK, during the 1970s, something called Operation Demetrius used 5 psychological torture techniques: sleep deprivation, hooding, constant noise, stress positions, and deprivation of food and water. And science confirms. Staying awake for too long causes hallucinations, mental confusion, loss of time perception, and psychological collapse. There is even a real case of a man who stayed awake for 11 days under medical supervision. He experienced hallucinations, memory lapses, and difficulty speaking. But he fully recovered. The difference? He chose to do it. He wasn't forced. That's why legends like this are so frightening. Because they mix fiction with truths humanity would rather forget. The Russian sleep experiment is fake. But the human capacity to cross moral limits, that's very real. And maybe the scariest part isn't the story that was invented, but the real stories we will never know. So if you're watching this late at night, feeling sleepy, maybe you should follow the final piece of advice. Go to sleep. Sleeping is what keeps you human, because staying awake for too long can take you to places you never want to visit. Good night.